The crisp white envelope arrived on a day much like any other. Clara Everwood, a woman who found comfort in routine, sat in her sun-drenched kitchen. Steam curled from her mug, the scent of Earl Grey blending with the faint aroma of old books that clung to her apartment. She picked up the envelope, its weight unfamiliar. The elegant script on the front, a stark contrast to the bills and postcards that usually filled her mailbox.
The name on the envelope stopped her breath. Alaric Everwood, a name whispered in hushed tones by her family, a name synonymous with both brilliance and eccentricity. Her great-uncle, a man she'd never met, a man who existed only in faded photographs and fragmented stories. He was a recluse, an inventor, and, if the whispers were to be believed, a time traveller.
Clara's finger traced the embossed return address, Ashwood Manor. The name conjured up images of a crumbling mansion shrouded in mist and mystery. It was a place spoken of with reverence and fear, a place where time itself seemed to stand still. The letter informed her of Alaric's passing and, most unexpectedly, named her the sole heir to his estate.
A strange cocktail of emotions bubbled within her. Sadness for a relative she'd never known, curiosity about the man and his secrets, and a tremor of something else, something akin to excitement. The letter was an invitation, a summons to a life less ordinary. Clara, usually so hesitant, felt an unexpected urge to answer its call.
Family law was a tangled web of truth and speculation. Clara had grown up on tales of Alaric Everwood, each story more fantastical than the last. He was a genius, they said, a man who could bend the laws of physics to his will. He had created inventions of wonder and, some whispered, of danger.
There were tales of a clock that could stop time, of a mirror that reflected past lives, of a machine that could pierce the veil of reality itself. But the most persistent rumor, the one that sent shivers down Clara's spine, was that Alaric had cracked the code of time travel.
Clara had always dismissed these stories as fanciful tales, the product of overactive imaginations, but now, holding the letter in her hand, she felt a flicker of doubt. What if there was more to her family history than she'd ever imagined? What if the whispers were true?
The thought was both exhilarating and terrifying. To think that time travel, a concept relegated to the realms of science fiction, could be real. To think that her own flesh and blood might have unlocked its secrets. It was a possibility too tantalizing to ignore.
The drive to Ashwood Manor was long and winding, the road twisting through dense forests and sleepy villages. As the miles passed, Clara felt a growing sense of anticipation mixed with a healthy dose of trepidation. What awaited her at the end of her journey?
The sun was beginning to set as she finally reached her destination. The manor loomed before her, an imposing silhouette against the twilight sky. It was more imposing than she had imagined, a sprawling edifice of dark stone with turrets and towers that seemed to claw at the heavens.
A wrought iron gate, rusted with age, barred her way. As she pushed it open, the hinges groaned like a mournful sigh. The driveway was overgrown with weeds, the stone cracked and uneven. The air hung heavy with the scent of damp earth and decaying leaves.
Clara parked her car in front of the main entrance and stepped out. The silence was absolute, broken only by the chirping of crickets and the distant hoot of an owl. The shadows from the trees stretched out towards her like grasping claws. She took a deep breath, steeling herself. This was it, the start of her adventure, or perhaps the beginning of something far more perilous.
The oak door, weathered and grand, loomed before Clara. A shiver ran down her spine as she raised her hand to the tarnished knocker. The sound, when it came, echoed through the silence, a sharp metallic clang that seemed to reverberate through the very stones of Ashwood Manor.
Moments stretched, each tick of the unseen clock within the house a hammer blow against the quiet. Just as Clara began to wonder if anyone was home, the door creaked open. A stooped figure, shrouded in shadow, peered out at her.
"You must be Miss Everwood. The master has been expecting you." With a gesture that seemed to encompass the grand, decaying splendor of the house, the figure ushered Clara inside. The air within Ashwood Manor was cool and still, thick with the scent of dust and time. Clara stepped across the threshold, the floorboards groaning beneath her weight, and into a world seemingly untouched by the passage of years. The Timekeeper's library.
The housekeeper, a man who introduced himself simply as Mr. Finch, led Clara through a labyrinth of dimly lit corridors. Portraits of stern-faced individuals, their eyes following her every move, lined the walls. Each room they passed seemed frozen in time, filled with antique furniture and shrouded in dust covers.
Finally, they reached a set of imposing double doors. Mr. Finch threw them open with a flourish, revealing a sight that stole the breath from Clara's lungs.
It was a library, but not like any she'd ever seen. Floor-to-ceiling bookshelves lined every wall, crammed with volumes bound in leather and vellum. A fire crackled merrily in the hearth, casting flickering shadows across the room. The air hummed with a strange energy, a sense of secrets whispering from the very spines of the books.
The master spent most of his time here, Mr. Finch said, his voice barely a whisper. He said books held the key to unlocking the universe's greatest mysteries. With a slight bow, he left Clara alone, closing the door softly behind him. A glimpse of the past.
Clara ran her fingers along the spines of the books, their titles a dizzying mix of the familiar and the utterly bizarre. There were tomes on history and science, philosophy and magic, alongside others with names like the Chronomagicon and a treatise on temporal displacement.
In the centre of the room stood a massive oak desk, its surface littered with papers, strange contraptions of brass and glass, and a leather-bound journal. Clara, drawn by an invisible force, sat down and opened the journal.
The writing within was Alaric's, elegant, almost feminine script that flowed across the page. Clara began to read, her heart pounding in her chest as she delved into her great-uncle's thoughts, his dreams, his obsessions.
Time, Alaric had written, is not a river, but a sea. We are but ships sailing upon its surface, unaware of the currents that run deep beneath. Clara shivered. Her great-uncle's words resonated within her, awakening something primal, something she hadn't known she possessed, a thirst for knowledge, for adventure, for the impossible. The clock's heartbeat.
Clara traced the intricate drawing of a clock mechanism in Alaric's journal. Each cog, each spring, each delicate hand drawn with meticulous detail. It pulsed with life, a silent symphony of potential energy. The air around her seemed to crackle, the scent of ozone tickling her nose.
The room began to shimmer, the library walls dissolving into a kaleidoscope of colours and shapes. She felt a lurch in her stomach, a sense of falling through space and time. The musty odour of old books vanished, replaced by the intoxicating aroma of lilies and champagne.
Then, as suddenly as it began, the dizziness subsided. Clara blinked, her eyes struggling to adjust to the sudden shift from dim library to dazzling light. She found herself standing in a grand ballroom, bathed in the warm glow of hundreds of flickering candles.
The air thrummed with music, a lively jazz tune that tugged at her feet. Couples in elegant attire waltzed past, their laughter echoing through the opulent space. Confetti glittered on the polished wooden floor, a testament to a celebration in full swing. Clara, feeling like Alice tumbling down the rabbit hole, gripped Alaric's journal to her chest. The room buzzed with conversations, snippets of words like invention, impossible, and Alaric reaching her ears.
The room buzzed with conversations, snippets of words like invention, impossible, and Alaric reaching my ears.
She found herself swept into the heart of the party, the vibrant energy of the 1920s swirling around her. Flapper dresses shimmered under crystal chandeliers. Men in tailored suits puffed on cigars, their voices a low rumble amidst the music.
Did you see it, darling? The Timekeeper's latest marvel? They say it can stop time itself. Alaric Everwood is a genius, but some say he's meddled with forces man was not meant to touch.
Clara's heart pounded in her chest. The Timekeeper. Was that what they called Alaric in this era? She longed to ask questions, to delve deeper into the whispers. but the swirling crowd kept her moving, a leaf caught in a whirlwind.
A hand touched my arm, and I turned to find a man with kind eyes and a mischievous smile offering his hand.
"May I have this dance?" Clara hesitated, her fingers tightening around the journal. But the man's smile was infectious, and the lure of the music too powerful to resist. She allowed herself to be drawn into the swirling dance, the rhythm of the Charleston pulsing through her veins. "You seem out of place, my dear. Not quite accustomed to our Roaring Twenties."
Something like that. I'm here with my uncle, Alaric Everwood.
The man's smile faltered slightly, a flicker of something unreadable in his eyes. "Ah, Alaric, a brilliant mind to be sure, but even brilliance casts shadows." Clara, her curiosity piqued, pressed him further.
What do you mean?
The man hesitated, then leaned closer, his voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper. "There are rumors, you see, that Alaric's inventions are not merely products of science, but of something darker." Clara's breath caught in her throat. The whispers, the shadows, they were more than just idle gossip. There was a truth hidden beneath the surface of this glamorous party, a darkness that clung to Alaric like a shroud, and she, it seemed, had stumbled right into its heart. The music swelled, a crescendo of sound that seemed to vibrate through Clara's very bones. The room spun, the smiling faces blurring into a dizzying kaleidoscope. The scent of lilies vanished, replaced by the sharp tang of rain and the musty odour of mothballs.
Clara stumbled, her hand grasping for something, anything to steady herself. The journal slipped from her grasp, its pages scattering across the floor. She closed her eyes, fighting against the nausea that threatened to overwhelm her.
When she opened her eyes again, the ballroom was gone. Gone were the twinkling lights, the elegant guests, the intoxicating music. In their place stood a dimly lit hallway, its walls lined with faded wallpaper and dark, heavy furniture.
The air hung heavy with silence, broken only by the creaking of the old house and the distant, mournful sound of a woman weeping. Clara, her heart pounding in her chest, realized she was no longer in the Roaring Twenties. Another time, another place had claimed her.
Clara took a hesitant step forward, her hand trailing along the cold, damp wall. The hallway stretched before her, a tunnel leading into the heart of the house's secrets. A floorboard groaned beneath her feet, the sound amplified in the silence.
She reached a doorway and peered inside. The room beyond was sparsely furnished, a single bed and a vanity table the only signs of life. A woman sat at the vanity, her back to Clara, her shoulders shaking with silent sobs.
Clara, her curiosity warring with her apprehension, stepped into the room. The air was thick with the scent of lavender and something else, something metallic and sharp, like the taste of blood in her mouth.
As if sensing her presence, the woman turned. Her face, framed by waves of dark hair, was etched with a grief so profound it seemed to emanate from her very pores. Her eyes, red-rimmed and swollen, met Clara's with a mixture of despair and something akin to recognition.
Clara's breath hitched in her throat. There was something hauntingly familiar about the woman's features, something that tugged at her memory, like a half-forgotten dream. She felt a strange kinship with this woman, a shared sorrow that transcended time itself.
The woman, clutching a silver locket in her hand, rose from her chair. She moved with a grace that belied her obvious distress, her eyes never leaving Clara's. "Who are you?" the woman whispered, her voice hoarse with unshed tears. "Why do your eyes mirror my pain?"
Clara, unsure how to answer, shook her head slowly. I don't know, she stammered, her voice small in the silence. She wanted to reach out, to offer comfort, but something held her back. An invisible barrier, woven from time and grief, separated them.
The woman took a step closer, her eyes fixed on Clara's face. The silver locket swung gently from her hand, catching the faint light from the window.
Clara recognized the locket instantly. It was the same one her grandmother had always worn, the one passed down through generations of women in her family.
The locket. It was my grandmother's.
The woman's eyes widened, a flicker of understanding crossing her grief-stricken features. She opened the locket, revealing a faded photograph of a young man in a military uniform. The man had the same kind eyes, the same mischievous smile, as the stranger from the ballroom.
He's gone. Lost to time. Lost to me.
She pressed the locket into Clara's hand, her touch cold and insubstantial like a breath of winter air.
Find him. Find him and you will understand.
Then, as quickly as she had appeared, the woman was gone, leaving Clara standing alone in the silent room, the weight of the locket heavy in her hand. The locket felt cold in Clara's hand, a stark contrast to the warmth of the tears that now streamed down her face. The woman's grief, so raw and personal, resonated in her bones. The air throbbed, a low hum replacing the echoes of sorrow. The wallpaper around her rippled, colours bleeding into muted greys.
Clara stumbled, her senses reeling. She gripped the locket, its intricate details digging into her palm. It was a lifeline, a tangible connection to the woman, to the past, to the mystery that swirled around her.
The world dissolved into a dizzying spiral, the scent of lavender replaced by the damp, earthy aroma of a forgotten place. She landed hard, her knees striking rough stone. Pain shot through her, but the sensation was overwhelmed by the oppressive atmosphere of her new surroundings. Gone were the faded elegance of the hallway, the scent of bygone lives. Clara found herself in a space consumed by shadows, the air thick with the weight of secrets and the stench of something akin to fear.
A single flickering gaslight cast long, dancing shadows across the rough stone walls, revealing a chamber that felt less like a room and more like a tomb. Moisture clung to the air, a cold, clammy embrace that sent shivers down her spine. Clara realized, with a jolt, that she was in a cellar deep beneath the heart of Ashwood Manor.
Clara rose to her feet, her eyes slowly adjusting to the gloom. The cellar was small, the air thick with dust and the pungent aroma of chemicals. Strange contraptions, cobbled together from gears, wires and glass tubes filled with bubbling liquids, littered every surface. It was a workshop, but not one of wood and warmth. This was a laboratory of shadows, a testament to a mind obsessed with unraveling the threads of time itself.
In the center of the room, illuminated by the flickering gaslight, stood a figure hunched over a workbench. It was Alaric, but not as he appeared in the faded photographs. Gone was the air of eccentric brilliance, the mischievous glint in his eyes. Here, in the heart of his secret laboratory, he was a figure consumed, his face etched with a desperate urgency that bordered on madness.
Clara watched as Alaric worked, his hands moving with a speed that seemed almost inhuman. He scribbled furiously in a leather-bound journal, his penmanship a frenetic scrawl that mirrored the chaotic energy of the room. He muttered under his breath, his voice a low, desperate plea that sent chills down Clara's spine.
Clara's gaze fell on the half-built device that consumed Alaric's attention. It was unlike anything she had ever seen, a monstrous tangle of metal and glass that pulsed with an eerie internal light. Wires snaked across the workbench like veins, connecting the device to a labyrinth of smaller contraptions that hummed and sputtered with unsettling life.
Fear, cold and sharp, clawed its way up Clara's throat. The air crackled with an energy that felt both alien and dangerous, a stark warning that vibrated in her very bones. She wanted to turn and flee, to escape the oppressive atmosphere of the cellar and the unsettling sight of her ancestor teetering on the edge of obsession.
But something held me rooted to the spot. A need to understand, to unravel the mystery that had led me to this place, to this moment in time.
She took a step closer, her breath catching in her throat as a floorboard groaned beneath her weight.
Alaric, lost in his frantic work, didn't notice me. Or perhaps he was beyond noticing, his mind consumed by the task before him.
He slammed his fist against the workbench, making her jump, and swore under his breath. It's not enough. Time, it fights back, resists, but I will win, I will control it, I will... His words dissolved into a string of incoherent mumbles, his voice thick with desperation. Clara's heart pounded in her chest. What was he trying to control? What force was he wrestling with in this subterranean lair? The questions clawed at her mind, fueled by a mixture of fear and a growing sense of dread.
I had come to Ashwood Manor seeking answers, hoping to unravel the truth behind my family's whispers and legends. But the deeper I delved into Alaric's world, the more I realized that some secrets were best left buried.
The air thrummed, the intensity of the device's light growing, the hum of its energy vibrating in Clara's teeth. Alaric, oblivious to her presence, continued his frantic work, his shadow a monstrous silhouette against the cellar wall.
I watched, my breath catching in my throat, as Alaric reached for a lever on the side of the device. The air crackled, the scent of ozone sharp in my nostrils. I knew, with a certainty that went beyond logic, that I was about to witness something momentous, something terrifying, something that would forever alter my understanding of time, of family, of my very existence.
And then the world dissolved. Clara gasped. The air knocked from her lungs as she landed on soft earth. The oppressive atmosphere of the cellar, the hum of Alaric's machine, the scent of ozone and fear, all vanished, replaced by the sweet fragrance of honeysuckle and the gentle chirping of birds.
Disoriented, I pushed myself up, my hand finding purchase on a bed of soft moss. Gone were the cold stone walls of the cellar, the flickering gaslight, the chaotic jumble of Alaric's experiments.
Clara found herself in a garden bathed in the golden light of late afternoon. Flowers bloomed in profusion, roses, lilies, lavender, their colours vibrant against a backdrop of lush greenery. A gentle breeze rustled the leaves of nearby trees, their branches swaying in a graceful dance. The air buzzed with the industry of bees, their droning a soothing counterpoint to the gentle murmuring of a nearby fountain.
I rose to my feet, my senses drunk on the beauty of my surroundings. It was a stark contrast to the dark, oppressive atmosphere of the cellar, a haven of peace and tranquility. But even in this idyllic setting, a sense of unease lingered, a disharmony humming beneath the surface of the beauty. It was as if time itself held its breath, waiting for something to shatter the fragile peace.
The girl in the top.
Clara took a hesitant step forward, her hand reaching out to steady herself against the sturdy trunk of an ancient oak tree. The air shimmered, the garden around her seeming to shift, to breathe in time with her own uncertain steps.
And then she saw her. A young girl, no more than 8 or 9 years old, knelt on the ground, her attention focused on a small wooden top that spun at her feet. The girl wore a simple white dress, her dark hair adorned with a bright red ribbon that stood out against the vibrant green of the grass. Her face was a picture of childhood innocence, but her eyes, when she glanced up at Clara, held a wisdom that belied her tender years.
Clara's breath caught in her throat. There was something hauntingly familiar about the girl, something in the set of her shoulders, the tilt of her head that tugged at Clara's memory. It was a feeling she couldn't quite place, like a half-remembered dream, a whisper from a life she hadn't lived.
Whispers on the wind. The girl rose to her feet, the spinning top forgotten, and took a step towards Clara. The air thrummed, the garden around them seeming to hold its breath, the rustling leaves and buzzing bees falling silent. It was as if time itself leaned in, eager to catch the girl's next words.
You've come. I've been waiting for you.
Who are you?
Clara took a step back, her hand instinctively going to the locket that hung heavy against her chest. Her voice was barely audible above the sudden, overwhelming silence of the garden.
Don't you recognize me, Clara? I am the echo of a choice, a path not taken, a life interrupted. I am the memory of what could have been and the promise of what might yet be.
Confusion warred with a growing sense of dread within Clara. The girl's words were like riddles, their meaning just out of reach, their implications sending shivers down her spine.
What are you talking about? What is this place? Why am I here?
This is the Garden of Echoes, a place where time bends, where past, present, and future intersect. You are here because you are the key, Clara. You hold the power to right the wrongs of the past, to heal the wounds of time. You must find the truth. The Timekeeper's echo never fades. It whispers through the ages, waiting for the one who can hear its call.
And with those words, the girl was gone, leaving Clara alone in the silent garden, the echo of her words hanging in the air. Clara stood frozen, the garden around her blurring at the edges as if reality itself struggled to hold its form. The scent of honeysuckle, once so sweet, now felt cloying, heavy with the weight of unspoken truths and the lingering presence of the vanished girl. The gentle breeze died, leaving an unsettling stillness in its wake. Even the birdsong seemed to falter, replaced by an unnatural quiet that pressed in on her, demanding recognition. The locket, clutched tightly in her hand, pulsed with a warmth that spread up her arm, a stark contrast to the chill that now settled deep in her bones. It was a tangible link to the mysteries swirling around her, a tether to a past she was only just beginning to unravel. A past that was, she now realized, inexorably intertwined with her own destiny. The girl's words echoed in the sudden silence, their meaning swirling around her like the scent of honeysuckle on the wind.
Find the truth. The Timekeeper's echo never fades.
Clara closed her eyes, battling the wave of dizziness that threatened to pull her under. The garden of echoes, the grieving woman, the frantic energy of Alaric's laboratory. They were pieces of a puzzle she was only just beginning to assemble. A wave of nausea washed over her, and she swayed, her hand instinctively reaching out to grasp the sturdy trunk of the ancient oak tree. The world around her dissolved into a kaleidoscope of colours and shapes, the scent of honeysuckle replaced by the musty odour of old books and the faint metallic tang of ozone. Clara felt herself pulled back through the corridors of time, towards the present and the weight of her inheritance. The world snapped back into focus, the vibrant hues of the garden replaced by the muted browns and golds of Alaric's library. Clara stood before the workbench, her hand still outstretched as if reaching for a lifeline that was no longer there. The air thrummed, the echo of the device's energy a phantom sensation against her skin. Alaric was gone, vanished into the labyrinthine corridors of time, leaving behind only the remnants of his obsession, the strange contraptions, the scattered papers, the leather-bound journal lying open on the workbench. Clara stepped forward, drawn to the book as if by an invisible force. The pages were filled with Alaric's frantic scrawl, a testament to a mind stretched to its breaking point, a mind consumed by the allure and the danger of manipulating time itself. Clara's fingers traced the faded ink, her heart pounding as she recognized the date scrawled at the top of the page. The date of the garden, the date of the girl, the date of a choice that echoed through generations. It was then that the full weight of her inheritance settled upon her, a crushing burden of responsibility and a thrilling surge of purpose. Alaric's legacy was not merely a collection of strange inventions and cryptic journals. It was a tangled web of choices and consequences, of actions that reverberated through time, of a family forever marked by the shadow of the Timekeeper. Clara closed the journal, the leather cool against her fingertips. The library, once a place of wonder and curiosity, now felt different. It was a repository of secrets, a testament to the brilliance and the folly of a man who dared to tamper with forces he could barely comprehend. She thought of the grieving woman, her face etched with a sorrow that transcended time, her eyes reflecting a pain that echoed through generations. She thought of the girl in the garden, her words a haunting reminder of the fragility of time, of the enduring power of choices made and paths not taken. And she thought of Alaric, his brilliance overshadowed by his obsession, his legacy a tangled web of unintended consequences. Clara knew, with a certainty that went beyond logic, that she could not simply walk away from Ashwood Manor, from the echoes that whispered within its walls, from the legacy that was now, for better or for worse, her own. She had stumbled into a mystery that spanned generations, a mystery that challenged her perception of time, of family, of her very existence. But she was no longer the hesitant woman who had first arrived at the manor's doorstep. She had journeyed through time, witnessed the consequences of Alaric's actions, felt the echoes of her family's past resonate within her own heart. She was now the keeper of the Timekeeper's legacy, and she would honor it, not by repeating his mistakes, but by striving to understand them, to learn from them, and perhaps one day to find a way to heal the wounds that time had wrought. She would embrace the shadows, confront the echoes, and forge her own path through the labyrinthine corridors of time.